One is a rather faithful, reserved book adaptation, the other an Americanized, action-packed retelling. The Day of the Jackal. They remade it.
Hi, and welcome back to They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
We are back at it again with our little movie watching ways, not video.
There's no video with this.
Yeah, no, I was going to say video watching, but I was like, no, that's that's a bit inaccurate.
This isn't a Nerdist show.
Oh, God.
When are we gonna compare just random videos we find on the internet?
When will we start deeming what is a remake and what isn't?
Like Numa, and New Numa.
My God. Or like
I like the color composition.
The dramatic groundhog video compared to like the progressive video that used it years later.
Just compare Progressive and Geico to everything they've stolen. Licensed.
Yeah. Don't sue us, please.
They haven't stolen anything. No.
Please don't sue us.
What a weird start. I wasn't expecting a tangent that.
Yeah, that was a fast one. Anyway, to keep us from losing our minds too early on. What you been watching?
Okay, I've been watching a lot of TV mainly. Not TV, but shows.
Gotcha.
The Adventure Time finale happened, so I watched that. I had a good time. That's about it.
Fair enough. Any movies?
Yeah, I did watch one movie, 1947. Or 1947, what am I talking about? 1941.
Yeah.
The Steven Spielberg comedy, which I know we've mentioned before. Have you ever seen it?
I saw it a while back when I was watching a couple of underknown films with my dad. I don't remember a lot about it.
Okay, because I had heard about it and I knew of it, but I had not seen it before. And it is a lot of fun, but it's very slow.
Yeah.
I like the aspect that it's a bunch of different stories happening that all meet together in the end. But
that's always a fun one, like what we're going to be watching today.
Right. But I think it took too long to do what it was trying to do. It was very surreal seeing Christopher Lee and Slim Pickens in scenes together on that sub.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
That's a bit of a shock. Of course, when I saw that, when I first seen that, it was not long after, like, I think Star Wars Episode 2 or 3 or something, and so I had seen it. And I was like, Count Dooku.
It's the Duke.
Meanwhile, not knowing just the full range that Christopher Lee has had in reality.
He was in the war.
Yes, he was, Jacob.
Yeah, don't mess with... You shouldn't have messed with him. Anyways, lastly, we're not quite there yet, but I always get the Halloween Jones a little early, so I'm starting to watch some horror stuff again, and as soon as we get into October, I'm probably watching nothing but horror for the whole month. So I'm starting to go back through the Tales from the Crypt, because I have, not all, but I have most of those seasons on DVD, and it's been a little while since I've watched them, so I've been going back through the first couple of seasons of that, getting in the mood.
Nice. I've seen like a couple... I haven't watched horrors specifically, but I've seen a lot of like various expose type videos online explaining like horror monsters and that sort of thing.
What do you mean explaining?
Like there'd be a video on the creature from the Thing, and it'd be kind of explaining its physiology and how it's explained more in detail in like certain aspects or like certain extras, like how, as a larger creature it's capable of cognitive thought, but when it's in smaller pieces it acts only on instinct, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and how
that's interesting.
How the creature itself is believed to have the intelligence and memories of all the creatures it's previously, fused with.
Huh. Well, I find your thoughts interesting, and I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter. What have
Okay.
you been going through? What have you
Uh,
been watching?
let's see. I watched that one romantic comedy type, To All the Boys I've Loved in the Past, or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah,
I watched that with my
have not
girlfriend. I thought that
seen
was
it,
cute.
but I haven't seen it, but I've seen of it.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
even know if it was a trailer that I watched, but
I mean, a lot of people have gone on about it online,
right.
so I thought it was cute. Um,
There you go.
beyond,
It's hard to find a good romantic comedy. I think the only ones that I've ever like seen that I enjoyed were probably When Harry Met Sally and maybe
mm,
Ghost. That's more of a romantic thriller, but
I like Love Actually.
I don't think I've seen Love Actually.
It's like the one set at Christmas, and there's a whole bunch of stories at once.
Nah, I don't. I don't think I've seen that.
It's about prime cheesy level, but it's kind of like it's good cheesy. Like it's at least well made. It's got a lot of
All
good
right.
actors in it.
All right. All right.
So
Look
yeah,
for that.
if you ever have the inkling to watch that with a loved one or alone,
Probably alone.
fair enough.
I ain't opening up to nobody.
That's fair. But
Any,
yeah, beyond that, I don't think I've watched much else. I've tried to watch occasional like TV shows whenever I can. The most I can say for series that I've caught back up on is Dragon Ball Z Abridged that finally showed back up online.
oh, abridged.
Yeah, that's
I
that's
gotcha.
that is the only anime I will ever watch.
You know that you actually reminded me. I also, this is not a joke. A couple of weeks ago, I took like a week and a half off, but a couple weeks ago I started going back through Dragon Ball, the original before Z.
Oh yeah,
Again.
I always forget that was a thing.
Yeah, it was spawned by a conversation I was having with some other people, but I was like, you know what? It's been a while since I've done that, so I watched like the first 30 or so episodes of Dragon Ball. So I'm kind of in the middle of watching that again, but I took like a week and a half or two off. So
I just can't do longer series. Hence why I say it's why I like the abridged series. Meanwhile, these most recent episodes had like a year and a half long hiatus in between them.
right. Well, at least you're not watching it in that time, I guess.
I mean, yeah, like
That's that. Yeah, that's more of a hiatus than just a really long
yeah, I
series.
guess yeah, exactly. So I think honestly, if you've never seen it online, it's so funny.
No,
God.
I've seen bits of it.
Yeah, I highly recommend it to anyone who cares to listen.
Who cares to watch Dragon Ball that's not Dragon Ball? Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that
I don't
sums
know
that
that
up
I have
pretty well.
anything else to go through, so let's just go ahead and get started.
Sure, you have the synopsis this week. You chose the movie.
Yes. Okay, so starting right off the bat with The Day of the Jackal, 1973. An assassination of the then president
It's a sassy murder.
it's very sassy. Of the then president of France, Charles de Gaulle, falls through, though this is not the first attempt that was made. Three higher-ups, realizing the danger that they could be in, yet still wanting to accomplish their goal, proceed to station themselves up in a hotel room with guards, I think 2 or 3 guards sort of stationed outside. And they meet with
I think they're in the floor below.
the floor below or the floor above, something like that.
Yeah.
And while there, they meet with an enigma of a man in order to hire him for the assassination of de Gaulle. The man is a blonde Englishman played by Edward Fox, and after some negotiations, the man agrees to go forward under complete secrecy and utilizing a plan that no one else knows other than himself. He gives the gentleman the code name of Jackal, which is French for jackal, so that they can refer to him if his cover should end up being blown. At this point, 2 separate plots sort of start up and begin to run at the same time, that of the Jackal obtaining supplies, IDs, passports, and a custom-made weapon, while the French government captures and interrogates one of the OAS bodyguards, the organization that these 3 men are a part of. The organization itself is not entirely responsible for this.
Yes.
Anyhow, they capture this bodyguard and discover the existence of the Jackal through torturing and investigating him. And realizing that this could mean that the president is in danger, they put a deputy detective on the case, Claude Labelle, played by Michael Lonsdale. I apologize for pronunciations. This is British French, so
Yeah, this is going to be an
you'll get
interesting
that.
one. A lot of it's going to be, at least for the Day of the Jackal, it's going to be a lot of French names.
Right. You'll get that with this. So LaBelle puts out his feelers to various other nations and receives feedback specifically from Scotland Yard, not only saying that a man named Charlie Calthrop could be responsible, but pointing out that the term Jackal is a portmanteau of his first and last name.
Well,
So
sort
the
of a portmanteau. It's like the first three letters of the word and the last three letters of the word relate back to the first three and last three.
first
letters
three
of
and first three of it's
his
very
first and last name. It's
Yeah.
a stretch by no other means.
Yeah. Why would you even bother doing that? Okay, so the Hun is on with the Jackal constantly changing his identities, taking various measures to conceal his identity, and killing a few people along the way, with the police always staying one step behind, unfortunately for them. Eventually, it is uncovered that he will make his final move at the anniversary of the French Rebellion, or Revolution, and
Liberation, actually. I think it's the liberation of Paris from the Nazis.
that is what it was. The Liberation,
Liberation Day.
albeit, in cutting out very extraneous details via a tense, albeit short scene. LaBelle is able to find the Jackal and kill him before he assassinates de Gaulle. That's a hard word. The Jackal
Got a little bit of a lisp today, bud.
I know. The Jackal is buried in an unmarked grave, and with the revelation that Calthrop was another fake identity used by the man, LaBelle and therefore the audience are left to wonder who the Jackal really was. So that's a fairly brief summation.
Oh, yeah, it cuts out a lot of the extensive investigative details that they go through.
Right, and I he kills, I think, 3 specific people, and I sort of glossed over that because I feel like we'll get into more specific details while we're comparing them.
Yes.
So I sort of packaged it that way. Now moving on to 1997's The Jackal, it's got a bit of a different start. So
Just
after
a
the
touch.
just a bit, just a little hair. After the death of a Russian gangster's brother at the hands of the FBI and MVD, which is the Ministry of Internal Affairs in Russia, that Russian mob hires an anonymous hitman known as the Jackal, played by Bruce Willis, to track down and kill an unidentified target. The Jackal's code name is eventually revealed to the MVD while they're interrogating a henchman of the mob, and after discovering documents that he was in possession of, are led to believe that the Jackal is after the director of the FBI, Donald Brown. So, several top members of the FBI, led by Deputy Director Carter Preston, played by Sidney Poitier in his final film role, track down former IRA agent Declan Mulqueen. Oh my god.
Declan. You're stuck on the French thing.
Declan Mulqueen, played by Richard Gere, who, through his various connections, they believe can lead them straight to the Jackal. In exchange, he wants them to try their hardest to get him out of prison. Meanwhile, the Jackal himself is preparing by gathering up essentials for his plan, sounds familiar, to go off without a hitch, including getting a long-range machine gun from one Ian Lamont, played by Jack Black, who was eventually killed by the Jackal with his own gun.
Jack Black yet again making an appearance of, oh, hey, it's Jack Black.
Oh, it was Jack Black. And now he's
Oh,
gone.
yes. It was Jack Black, and then there was a bit less of Jack Black, and then there was no more Jack Black.
I want to say this may be like his first big film role, but I'm pretty sure Jack Black played a high school student in Neverending Story 3, and I think that might have come out before this. So
Close enough.
Close enough. So the FBI learns more of the plan and the man through talking with Mulqueen's former lover, Isabella Zacona, and the discovery of Lamont's remains. However, due to being tipped off by a Russian mole that existed in the MVD, the Jackal travels to Zacona's house to deal with her, only to kill 3 of the top FBI agents searching for him in that same house. But through a visit to that particular crime scene and some dying words and investigative prowess, Mulqueen realizes that the Jackal is in fact after the First Lady of the country, not the FBI director, and that she is soon going to be giving a public speech and that that's where the Jackal will make his move. The FBI arrives to thwart his remote-operated assassination. Mulqueen chases the Jackal through the subway, and in the end, he is killed by Zakona. The Jackal, that is. Very confusing, very many people.
Yeah. Way more than's necessary.
Way more than necessary. In the end, we see him buried in an unmarked grave while Preston pretends to leave Mulqueen momentarily, allowing him to escape and not have to go back to prison.
And the end.
Ta-da!
I honestly don't know which of these two is less confusing.
I think I might be biased here, but I think that the original is a little less confusing just because I read the book and it is like a straight... I can think of one detail that's changed. Outside of that, it is a straight adaptation.
Yeah.
Probably plus the most faithful book to movie I've ever seen, to be honest.
Wow, damn. I think also it's just the fact that the original explains out everything that happens. It's hard. It's difficult in the end to say I didn't know what was happening, but there are certain moments I was like, I wish I knew less.
Where's the mystique?
It's like, on the one hand, super interesting. On the other hand, drags just a touch.
Before we get too far into it, I don't want to jump ahead of myself.
Yes.
I am getting a bit out of breath, but I have one more thing to go over, and that is the full circle segment.
Da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da. That's the new music.
Just me going da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Nah.
I like it. I'm gonna print it. Okay.
Oh, God.
So, for the 1973's The Day of the Jackal, there were no big similarities, just a small one that I felt I should mention, and that's that it shares a lot of similar sound department employees with that of 1982's Blade Runner.
It seems like those guys got around a little.
Oh, they did. Throughout all the research I've done, I think the sound department and the stuntmen are the ones that are constantly reused, like in everything we've touched.
Yeah.
But no big actors, producers, anything like that. Moving on to 1997's The Jackal, we're coming into the States, so...
And, with a big name like this.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot more connections here. So, starting it right off, 1983's Scarface shares Buddy Joe Hooker, who is a stuntman in both films. Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, both of them share a lot of visual effect department similarities between them and the Jackal. A lot of ties there.
Surprising with 2049, considering how modern it is.
Right, and especially there is a time gap there, not a huge one, but almost 40 years. I think around 35.
Roundabout, yeah.
Yeah. Ghostbusters 1984, Dan Plum was a stuntman in both, and Larry King shows up in both movies through television segments where I guess he's either talking about the Ghostbusters or talking about the Jackal.
It was really weird in the Jackal one where he was talking to the First Lady, and midway through their conversation the subject changes at a right turn if you have subtitles on.
I didn't notice that I didn't have subtitles on. I think I'm either glossed over that or I just plain missed it.
It goes from humanitarian efforts or something to talking about how someone is never truly safe. And it's like, what?
Oh, true editorializing at its finest.
Yeah.
May he never pass on.
Oh, God.
So, True Grit 1969 and the Jackal 1997. That's a decent-sized gap. They both had Neil Summers in them, who was a stuntman.
God damn, that dude's getting up there.
Yeah, he's definitely up there now if he's still with us.
Yeah.
I don't have that information on hand.
At a certain point, we're just doing stunts. You're just doing the injuries.
That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
People die doing stunt work probably more often than anything else in that industry, obviously.
Probably, yeah.
So moving on to the 2010s True Grit, we got music department similarities between the two films, but also J.K. Simmons is in both.
Hey, very briefly.
Albeit just as a voice in True Grit as lawyer Daggett.
Which is still just an amazing random moment.
Yeah. I'm still stunned. I'm still blown away that I missed that and that you had to prove it to me.
I immediately heard it when I heard it. I was like, "Oh my god, that's J.K. Simmons."
I only notice him if he's doing J. Jonah Jameson or if he's doing the Yellow M&M.
Fair.
Okay, so two final connections we have here. Little Shop of Horrors 1986 shares Martin Krauka, who was the assistant director of the Jackal, but he also did miscellaneous crew work on Little Shop of Horrors. So moving up there a bit, he was just a crewman, and then he moved to assistant director.
Jeez, that's quite the jump.
Yeah. And finally, Ocean's 11 2001 shares two stuntmen with the film, Daniel W. Berenger and Brian J. Williams. Again, apologies for pronunciations if they're not correct. We're spanning all ethnicities and backgrounds here.
Yeah. We are simple men.
Yeah. But that being said, that's it. That's all for this segment. Bye-bye.
Hooray.
So that's the end of the show, right?
We just have an entire show just called Full Circle. We're just relating all these random movies we've decided.
I don't think we have anywhere else to go.
Let's relate Casablanca to
Who's
Murder,
minding
She
the
Wrote.
mint? Murder, She Wrote. At least yours kind of has some thematic ties.
I mean, not that I know.
So I do want to pick up where we left off.
Yes.
With what you were talking about in regards to knowing a little bit less.
Mm-hmm.
They move. So there's a huge difference between The Day of the Jackal and the book that it's based on. One huge difference, but there's also a slightly smaller one. That Jackal thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like Charlie Calthrop Jackal. You know, there's the connection there with the name. They just sort of do it in passing. Do you think that was a little anticlimactic? Because there was like a huge build up to it in the book when they discovered it, and even if it's stupid, they were all like, "Whoa, I can't believe it! Impossible!" Or "How'd we overlook this?" And in the movie, he's just like, he points it out to the guy, and he just, while they're sitting on the bench, and he just kind of looks at him with his eyes hanging down, just like, "Are you serious? This is what you're telling me?"
I think I'm okay with the fact that it's glossed over for that very fact, because it is a ridiculous tie to pull. Like, of all the things, of all the connections you could have to a multinational, expert hitman, that's your choice here. And I'm like, I don't even know if the French word for jackal is specifically jackal. I think that's just how they would pronounce the English version of the word.
That sounds right. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea. I took Spanish in school. I don't know anything about French except merci beaucoup.
I failed French. That's about it.
Well, you're right. I did find it funny.
I should say I just looked it up. It is, in fact, chacal is the French word for it.
Oh, well, there you go. At least there's some consistency there.
Yeah, but that's about... But even still, I am okay with the fact that they gloss over it a bit, because it's a cool detail, but it is in no way something that should be taken that seriously.
Right, I got you. And this is a movie comparison podcast, not a book one, so I'm going to get this out of the way so I don't harp on the book.
Yeah.
The one big change that I'm referring to, actually in the grand scheme of things, is not that big. And it's that in the book, he goes to a gay bar and is picked up. And in the film, it's a bathhouse.
Right.
So that's the big difference I'm referring to, and I know it's not that big, but compared to the rest of it, it is like straight adaptation from the book.
Huh. I guess Turkish bath might be a bit more... I don't think they can explicitly, in a movie, at least in 1973, explicitly say, this is a gay club. Like, I think that may have been, like, through the FCC, they may have just been like, no.
Probably, though. I have to say, reading that book made me very uncomfortable. It was very homophobic in that chapter. I have to
Oh
say.
wow, really?
Yeah,
Eesh.
I guess that's a difference. But
I mean, fair enough.
leaving that behind,
And
leaving
and
the
one small detail before we get into the hard comparison, and this is just a random thing I noticed. For the entirety of the movie, I kept thinking, for the 1973 version, Edward Fox, I kept thinking was another actor I knew until I realized the fact that the actor I was thinking of is in modern movies, like in 2014. It's Matthew Good. He's in The Imitation Game as like an extra scientist person. He's a British actor. He's been in a couple random things. He looks nearly identical in a lot of ways, and it kept bothering me throughout it. I was like, what the hell?
I'll have to look for I'll have to look for that. See if I've seen him in anything. I
Yeah.
haven't seen The Imitation Game, but it doesn't sound like he has a very big role in it, anyways.
Not really. He's just a side character, but still, it is freakish how similar they are. Like, they're both like kind of wiry British actors. It's
You know
just-
what? What's his name? I'm gonna do this right now live. Well, live and then
We'll do it
record
live. It's Matthew Good, Goode.
Matthew Good.
This is riveting stuff, people.
This guy with glasses. This glasses wearing guy.
I mean,
Oh
potentially.
man, he's playing a guitar. Canadian rock musician. I guess that's not it.
Okay, yeah,
I'll have
no,
to
not
look
him.
it up later.
Yeah, he's he's credited
I
as
thought it'd be
character
interesting.
actor. But,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Character actor. Woo. You know, speaking of character actors, I've always enjoyed him. I've always liked him as an actor. But the more and more I see of him, the more and more convinced I am that J.K. Simmons is my favorite character actor.
You know what? I
really
gotta
am.
agree. I gotta agree. He is a gem.
I love seeing him in everything, and he's been around doing stuff for so long, but I feel just now he's starting to gain more and more popularity. That Spider-Man game came out, and they realized the pull of Jameson, so he's in that as Jameson.
He is?
Was, yeah.
Oh, I've been playing it. The voice sounds a little different.
Oh, I've been playing it too, and as soon as I heard it, I was like, that's him, isn't it? And I looked it up, and what I saw confirmed that it was, so I was like, oh, okay.
Sure enough. Cool.
Hey y'all, Jacob cutting in. So, upon doing more than 2 seconds of research, I've actually discovered it is not J.K. Simmons. In fact, it is a man by the name of Darren DePaul. So, I'm not really sure what it was that I saw. I'm pretty sure it was a Twitter post, but it is not, in fact, J.K. Simmons, though, especially when he's screaming, you could have fooled me. It's very well done. But, you know, he was in Gravity Falls, and he was one of the star performers in Whiplash, so I'm glad he's getting more and more recognition.
On this latest episode of the JK Cast.
JK Cast. Stay tuned for more
But yes,
yellow M&M talk.
But yes, I think we should probably get a bit more into the meat of things.
Yeah. So if we're gonna sort of transitioning but still keeping that topic, again, you were talking about you wish you knew less because it explains so much
I thought
in the 73 one.
I at least thought that at first because I kept thinking it was going to be like one of those situations like in the original Ocean's 11 where it was going to be going to one place after the other and just going into a weirdly unnecessary amount of detail. And so I was geared up at about the 20-minute mark to just be like, oh god, this is going to be another 2 hours and 20 minutes. And this is a long movie as well.
Jacob, what have you done? Why would you pick this?
I was inches away from texting you while watching it, being like, Jesus Christ, Jacob, why this one? It's so long.
Can we do The Wizard of Oz this week instead?
Oh god. But about the hour mark or so, I started to get really into it because it had started bringing some other elements back in that it hadn't touched on for a while. Like, that was a whole big thing with it, that you'd see the Jackal doing all this random stuff, and you're like, what is he doing? And then it doesn't touch on it for a while, so it just seems like he's doing unnecessary background stuff. But then it starts pulling those elements back in, and throughout the movie. And so once I started seeing that, I was like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing, and what the movie's doing as a whole. And so I started getting gripped more, and then that, as well as just how interesting it was to see like the level of investigative work that people had to do in this time for this level of, for this kind of situation, this hellish situation that these cops were in. And
Right.
it's once it started coming together, it gripped me really hard, and up to the last seconds of the film, I was like, once it hit like the hour and a half onward, I was completely gripped, and I could not I wanted to see how everything went along. I wasn't sure who I was rooting for more in the end, which was crazy. And so up to the very last seconds of the movie, I was just out the edge of my seat with it. I was so enthralled.
I know. I felt the same thing, and I think that's good. I think that's good through what they did through storytelling in the medium, because I already knew what was going to happen.
Right, exactly.
Since I read the book, unless they pulled like a really weird fat curveball on me, but
Yeah.
even knowing what was going to happen, I still had that tension like you get with a really good show that you've watched before, but you're still like, oh, why are you doing this? I know what's going to happen. You shouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, and it doesn't have those kind of moments in a lot of movies where it's very smartly done. Like, it's like, obviously it's pulling straight from the book, so most of the credit has to be put on Mr. Forsyth for that one. But it was so smartly done that it didn't feel like at any point there was a moment in which the plot was being propelled by a stupid decision. Like, so many movies, especially modern ones, seem to have this reliance on dumb decisions or uninformed decisions that cause the action to continue. But this one, it was literally everyone was doing the thing they should have been doing, and it kept propelling it forward like that. So I felt completely gripped, and I didn't feel like I had to be a doofus in order to enjoy it.
Right. I think that really helps that LaBelle and the Jackal, they are always doing what they're supposed to be doing. If they get screwed over, it's through someone else's actions or someone else's incompetence.
Or just the fact that they couldn't have been in a situation soon enough, given the information they had.
Right. So they have to adapt when they get to that point, and then just keep moving forward. And it never feels like it's their fault. So it's this really big battle. It's almost like a battle of the minds, where one person has a slight upper hand. So you're like,
Right.
well, how's he gonna catch up? He's already 2 steps behind.
Which is so cool, because whenever you realize that these two characters, the Jackal and LaBelle, only ever meet at the very last moment of the movie when LaBelle kills Jackal. It's just like, that's the only time they've ever been face to face, and it's just so interesting to see this whole climax and how all this is being, like how this entire situation is building around it without the two even being within the same, mile as each other.
Right. That being said, though, were you disappointed in the ending just because of how like snap it is once they do meet? Because in both versions, the movie and the book, I felt that it was so quick when it did end, and I don't know where I would have wanted them to go from there, or how I would have wanted them to elongate it, if I would at all. But I still have that tinge of I wanted something more.
Right. I kind of range back and forth. Like, I love political thrillers, especially really made ones like this one. And I think I do like how it ended, because it did everything it needed to do. Like, there's a big problem with, especially American movies, that they tend to draw things out a little bit, which we will get into later with the other movie. But they tend to draw things out to the point where it kind of loses any sense of realism or tension. Because, it's like it's like, it's an opera at that point. What's damn well is going to happen, but everyone's just going to exaggerate their movements and their lines to the point of being ridiculous. Versus this one, the entire movie was building up, which is this by-the-book police work versus this cold, hard, super trained killer. And there really wasn't any other way it could have ended, like, without it being, kind of losing the tone that it had built up to that point. So I think I do like it. The action lover in me was a little disappointed with it, but I do think the last scene, the tension is built up really, really well just throughout the entire parade day. That it does kind of just that really quick release. I think actually did kind of serve it well.
Okay, that is a good viewpoint. It's so tense that that immediate release, I guess, is necessary. Maybe they
Right.
didn't want to build it up anymore. It's like, well, we've already been sort of. That's the whole point of the cat and mouse game, is to tease the inevitable. So
Right. And then with a true cat and mouse story, the ending of a cat and mouse chase is usually pretty quick.
yeah,
It's like the cat kills the mouse, and that is that.
all right, yeah. I think I'm coming around.
So I do like it for that, and just with the director of this one, which I do not have that open, and I need to get the director, but it's Fred Zinnemann. It was he did everything in his power to make the tension in this feel so legit. Like the fact that there was no musical score after the first 5 minutes. Otherwise, it was all diegetic sound in the background, and I think that really added to it. At first, I was going to be kind of down on it because it started to get it lulled in certain portions, like whenever he'd be driving and that sort of stuff. But I think it worked out for the best to have just a really build up of tension.
Oh, all right, yeah. I see where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're sort of, I guess if we're looking at it that way, which is a good way to look at it. Like I said, I think that I'm coming around to your thought process, and
Right.
I do think I agree to an extent. It's probably, I'm not even a big action movie fan, but I think there is some part of me that really did want it to be more big and explosive, which doesn't mean that it had to be.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I'm just full of complaints today. In 1997, in that the Jackal,
the Jackal, which I should say just for the record that apparently Mr. Forsyth, like two things with it. Mr. Forsyth, the author of the original book, demanded that his name be taken off the project, and so in the opening it is said based on the theatrical screenplay of The Day of the Jackal, and it doesn't even have Forsyth's name. It just has the name of the screenplay writer. And just 2 years before his own death, Forsyth was defending that it should be changed from The Day of the Jackal to The Jackal. That way, the original would still stand the test of time.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm glad he stood his ground.
Yeah, so that should tell you the opinion of the two comparisons.
But talking about endings, which I love that the first thing we're talking about sort of is the endings.
Oh yeah,
But-
'cause, I mean with thrillers, the ending is going to be the biggest talking point.
True. It, like I said, sort of full of complaints today. It had what I was looking for, or what I felt that I wanted in the original, but the way it did it, I was still not a fan of. So it sort of like, it's almost like taking your notes. Well, this is what I want done, and then it does it exactly, but it still doesn't please you.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is just filler at this point. So I guess I just can't be pleased, and my opinion cannot be trusted.
I mean, neither, like professionally speaking, neither of our opinions can be trusted, but we still say it all the same.
I don't have a piece of paper saying that it can, so...
Yeah, there we go.
Yep. But yeah, it drew it out sort of to an absurd extent, and
Yeah, like
that
I
whole
was.
hostage thing,
Yeah, that was just like trying to play up. I think because at that point they hadn't really established the Jackal as much more than just cold hard killer. This one was adding the element of like just straight up psychotic, which I think the problem with a lot of those late 90s early 2000s action thriller types was that they really wanted to try and make this inhuman villain type, which to a point where it actually loses any credibility.
yeah, I don't know. I felt like it's fine to do that even if it's played out, but it was too little too late, I should say,
Yeah.
to start developing more aspects of his character.
Yeah, it's just I liked like a lot of it, I liked how they modernized a lot of the stuff with the ending, like how it had the remote control sniper rifle, like high caliber weapon, whatever it was. Um, but I still think it just loses something. It's like less personal.
Yeah, that's such a tense, like, tight thing too. Think about the day of the Jackal. Okay, you know, he's got this custom made rifle that he's using.
Yeah,
You know, so precise and so thin and sleek the way it's made, and
it's like he can hide it in a set of crutches and everything, which was so cool.
Right.
That entire, I can I just say just really quick that whole ending bit where he was playing the war veteran, that really got me. That's what made me love the film like pretty much more than anything, because like it had built it up so well earlier where with the counterfeit documents. It was like, I got you these other things, but this third card, that was hard to do. And then it was revealed it's like a veteran's card. And it was just like, oh my God. It was that entire bit just gripped the hell out of me.
Right.
And just like
I'm
how
glad that touched you so much.
and like how specifically he had the gun designed and everything. It was just like, oh my God, it was perfect. But yes,
Right.
Continue. Like,
Well, yeah, it's so precise in how it's constructed, and he misses the first shot. Not again, it's not his fault. It's the actions of someone else,
right,
i.e., De Gaulle leaning forward on a
unexpectedly.
veteran, yeah, unexpectedly, so he has to take another shot. But it's so precise that, you know, it matters that he missed it. He had it set for a specific area and he didn't get the shot. Whereas Bruce Willis's Jackal has this huge, like, turret gun with explosive rounds, and sure, he's aiming at a specific spot, but I don't know, that thing,
Yeah.
like, collapsed a tree when
Yeah,
he
in one
tested it out
shot.
earlier. Yeah, and eventually he's just like, well, I'll just blow the whole place up then. It's like, you're like the worst assassin ever.
Yeah, and it builds it up like it's trying to be like how a lot of those action movies are like, oh, he's getting ready to press the button, and it takes like 30 seconds for him to press the button while the other people are getting into position.
He's
It's
like
just,
swinging his finger around on the button, like
it's
almost sensually, like, oh, I'll press it.
like and versus like the 73 version where the guy he had to set it up so precisely since it's a very very specific sniper rifle that probably is incredibly unwieldy if you were to do it anything other than perfect conditions.
Right.
And it was just like with all of its cool modernization, it just kind of lost all tension at that last moment. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, you lost me. To be honest, you lost me when J.K. Simmons got shot, but
Spoilers.
uh-oh, spoiler, we just
I know. I know. I say
Okay,
spoilers
well-
as earlier I had talked about how the Jackal had gotten shot in the 73 version.
not to mention though, because even though you grew around to it, that was something you were saying about the 73 one, is that you felt that it was explaining too much, and then it started to hide stuff. The
Well,
Jackal,
it wasn't even necessarily that. It's like early on, it had hit stuff early on, but it mostly was just like, the Jackal would get these documents, or he would get like this hair dye, and then he wouldn't bring it up again until way later. And so I thought they were just leaving stuff out, but it turned out it ended up looping back in on itself
right?
at like the perfect time. Like that I loved, because at first I was like, oh, this sucks, but then I was like, oh my God, they were just tricking me.
Well, sort of what I was going to bring about with that is that in The Jackal, 1997's The Jackal,
Yes.
they get that out of the way really quickly. Like all the stuff he's doing, he immediately switches through. You see him switching through all these different personas and going and
Yeah.
doing all this stuff. The only thing they hold out on is him getting the gun, because they have to have a scene with Jack Black in it.
Of course.
Besides that, he gets all of his planning and scheming taken care of in like 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, like it's kind of disappointing, really. Like that's the worst part of it. It's like I was so down on the original for over explaining, and then I saw the other one, and I was like, wow, I really wish they'd explain it now.
Yeah, I think probably the coolest bit that sort of, even if it's not the same style or the same theming, emulates the methodical nature of the Jackal would probably be the house scene with the FBI when they're in
Yeah.
Mrs. Zakona's house. And I guess maybe I also like it because it's got some horror movie elements to it, where lights are going off and things are distracting people while other people are getting killed, and you don't know where he's hiding. But personally, I don't know. I thought that was the best part of the whole movie because it sort of showed how restrained he can be before going full Looney Tune again near the end.
I'd almost say it's the opposite, because, like, in, like as how it shows in the original, the Jackal does everything in his power to avoid any interaction with police officers of any kind, so that he doesn't get, he realizes his own strengths and weaknesses, and he realizes if he gets too close to a police officer, he might screw up. Versus Bruce Willis's character just walking right in and just gunning down FBI agents with little regard for his future safety. Like, for all you know, there could have been people within 30 seconds arrival to come take him down. He could have easily avoided hitting up this, killing these agents. He was mostly doing it to get at Declan due to their relationship.
No,
it seemed a little kind of out there. I kind of thought it was an unnecessary risk to take.
No, I do as well, and don't misconstrue or misunderstand, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think that his character is reserved in the slightest. I just think that that's the closest it comes. And
okay.
Overall, the movie, The Jackal, I was not a big fan of at all. I just feel like that scene in particular, because of specific moments in that one scene, I think is the closest I came to enjoying the movie.
I gotcha, yeah.
Yeah.
It's fair enough. Yeah, we're pretty down on the '97 version. But there's so many stereotypical elements of the '97 version that with so many action movies of that time that just have always rubbed me up the wrong way. Like, this necessity of getting this imprisoned expert on the subject into the situation, or, all these extra personal details we need. A lot of directors back then just seemed to believe that audience members couldn't get behind a character of pure authority. Like, if we were just following the FBI agents on this, we wouldn't have brought in as big of a crowd, or they wouldn't have enjoyed it as much. That they had to bring in Richard Gere's character and have him have this Irish character that would be kind of visually and vocally appealing to the point that it'd be a bit more compelling. But I've never liked that trope. It's just kind of always been kind of boring to me.
Oh, and of course, don't forget, this fantastic sniper who's locked away in this prison also has an extensive history. Well, I wouldn't say extensive, but he has a background with this professional hidden assassin involving the murder of his unborn child.
Oh yeah, that's the point that got me the most. I was like, oh, come the hell on. I
didn't even put that in the description because I didn't want to.
Yeah, it's completely unnecessary. It's just adding some random extra bullcrap to make us be like, oh, he's such a adorable, lovable scamp, versus the fact that he's literally an IRA terrorist.
Yeah, that has killed government officials, and that's why he's locked away.
Yeah, people that's always the biggest thing, is they have to humanize them. We have to humanize these movements that they're in. It's like, no, the IRA is a fucking terrorist organization that have killed people and innocent civilians. Like, fuck me.
Don't be fooled. Deputy Director Preston has committed a crime.
Yes.
He let that man walk free.
They
just let him walk away.
They make some point where he's he's credited with the saving of the First Lady, and that's because he could do pretty much anything in his life and he wouldn't get in trouble for it, including letting him walk. But let's not beat around the bush here. That was still letting a known criminal escape. It's just one of those things, there's suspension of disbelief for a fun time, and then there's really and that's a big trope of that era of action and thriller movies that have always gotten me.
Yeah, that sort of parting of ways at the end specifically, regardless of who the parties are, they're both walking in two different directions as the camera pans out.
And
Oy.
like the credits start to roll.
Yeah, there's so many tropes that are used in the movie is not old because it's the 90s. And
Late
it's definitely
90s
not,
even.
yeah, exactly, and it's definitely not old enough to have created any of these. It's
It
just
still
pulling.
subscribes to so many.
Exactly. It's just you can use this as a late example of how prevalent some of these things are
Mm-hmm.
in cinema. You know what we're accustomed to and what we see. One of the earliest grown moments for me is he's requesting out of the prison as his sort of leverage for helping them, and
Like
they all
bargaining
turn.
chip.
Yeah, they all turn to walk away, and he's like, I know him, I met him before. And all four of them stop and turn around in unison to look at him. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
The
Yeah.
group turn?
It's like, are we seriously doing that right now?
Are we doing the group turn?
Uh, it was, yeah.
There
I,
weren't really. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna make a throwaway comment. You go ahead.
I was going to say that I can think of. I definitely didn't note it, but I can't think of any tropes that the Day of the Jackal uses filmmaking wise. There's obvious tropes with the medium, like that genre,
Right.
but specifically with how the film is made, I can't think of any.
Neither can I. Like, I mean, there's dramatic irony, but you can't really say that's a trope. That's
That
actually when it's used well, it's actually a very good film technique.
and that's been being used for quite a long time as well.
It
I
actually
wonder if
kind
it's
of
transcended trope to staple, or I don't know what that evolution process would be.
I don't really know, but like it's actually cool to think about. It actually kind of does some anti tropes where there's a lot of moments, or at least a couple of moments where you anticipate it doing something, but it does something else, or it like pulls it away. Like the first one I can think of was when he spray painted his car to avoid detection, and how it specifically shows him finding new license plates and then painting the car and everything. But then he immediately losing the car because he gets into a car accident. Versus
Right.
we see that in this 97 version where he's just casually changing the paint color all the time and he's able to get away with it scot-free. But it actually in the original it takes that but then pulls it away. It's like, oh, here's the thing, he's totally going to be able to get away with things now. Nope. And then it also has that with the woman that he's having kind of this affair with, and it kind of makes you think, oh, is he giving up on this mission? Has he found this love? Has he found is he now have something better to fight for? But then he immediately kills her and takes advantage of the resources her home provides, and then continues on his way to complete his target. It's like, I thought for all the world that it was going to be the whole, oh, he's changed his ways, but now he's on the run as a fugitive with the woman he loves. It was like, nope, it just took that and threw it away.
Yeah.
I actually kind of loved it because it took these usual tropes that is present in so much media, and it just kind of got rid of them and kept it going along this really hardcore route. And I actually really, really liked it.
That's true. And I actually thought of this because of what you said. So the woman he's having this affair with, well, it's not an affair on his end, but it is on hers. Uh, is not. It's sort of like a safeguarding thing. I thought. This is like a place to go to. Although there's obviously lust involved with that, and then he gets to use her resources at the end. So that's not really his mistake. She sort of finds out about it, quote unquote, so he has to do away with her.
Right. But that's also like a cool part of the film technique is of, I don't know whether or not it leaves it very vague. You don't know whether or not he was planning to kill her all along, or if that was just a thing he decided once he learned that, oh, the police have been here, they know about my connection to her.
That's true.
It never explains that specific motive, and I think it does it all the more justice because it really kind of it kind of lets you decide the character of this incredibly mysterious figure who we don't even know his real name.
Right.
It's like you don't know what his motivations are up to the bitter end.
Yeah. That being said, though, that car accident was his fault.
I don't think I thought the other guy was kind of drifting into. I mean, he was tired and he, ended
Yeah.
up running into him. But I thought the other car was also in the other lane.
Oh, when I was watching, I thought
Yeah, I thought
we'll have to go. Maybe we'll both have to go back because when I watched it, I thought that he was in the wrong lane.
I could have sworn that the car that Jackal hit was actually. It may have been going around a turn and he was just like a little bit in the middle of the road, but I almost certainly think it was kind of on both people's part on that one.
Maybe because when I was watching it, it looked like, from what I recall, he was driving in the right lane, and then that accident happened. I was like, he got that other guy should have watched where he was going, and I was like, wait, this is in Europe. Shouldn't he have been in the left lane? So I don't know.
Well, left lane's just in England.
Is it just in England? I thought that was a
Nope.
European
Nope,
thing.
just
Plainly.
England. Just because England's stupid.
Oh, okay.
Which, hey, there's even an argument to be made there. He's English, possibly. He may have just been thinking to drive in the wrong lane. Who knows?
That's true. Uh-oh.
But at the same time, I still think the other car was the one in the wrong lane, and we don't even know if the Jackal is explicitly English. So,
Yeah. Regardless, those are both out there for exactly what you were saying, I suppose.
right, exactly.
Something that the Day of the Jackal did very well, I thought. I didn't write down every instance this occurred, but it got comedy through fairly well through the use of cuts.
Oh yeah,
I was thinking,
there's early on when it shows the execution of that one OAS leader.
right.
It's
that was a good
no
one.
no French soldier will hold their gun to me. Cut to his execution where he is shot the fuck down.
That was great. There was another one slightly later on, which was logical but was also comedic the way it was done. They find the man Charlie Calthrop's apartment, who turns out not to be the assassin, just a man named Charlie Calthrop,
And
whose
I think,
identity was stolen.
Yeah, I think they may have also found. Oh yeah, they ended up finding a passport in there that he didn't have, so that actually ended up being a red herring.
Yeah, but as they're about to go into his apartment, one of the agents says, "We should probably get a warrant," and then it cuts immediately them ripping apart the room and pulling drawers out of the dresser. And I thought that was really funny too. Just immediate chaos after they're talking about these police procedurals that they have to go through.
Yeah, it is. It is. There are a few moments of that, or even kind of dark humor, almost like when he's at the the Turkish bath man's house, and he hears the other man hears the assassin's name over the TV, and he just slowly turns and he walks out of shot, and you just hear a thud. It's like, all right, I know that was probably meant to be more dramatic, but it also came off as a little funny. It was also a great shot, I gotta say. There's a lot of really great shots in this film, actually.
Oh, so that slow moving. Now that's like a horror.
Oh yeah, this really and that's really just a thought I've had at this point, that this movie really shouldn't be considered an action at all. It's definitely just thriller. There's very few moments of any actual outright action, save for the very very end, but everything else is very slowly drawn out in moments, versus the Jackal, the 97, the Jackal being explicitly an action, given that there are multiple moments of action and sequences.
Yeah, I think that sort of goes hand in hand with, I don't know, American cinema. It's like, okay, well, what do Americans like? Action. Well, when they're making it, because just that, what has a bigger draw? Is it going to be action or a political thriller at the box office here?
Yeah, and it may not even be American explicitly. There's, as we've seen with Ocean's 11, I think it's just the progression of time. As we got into the 80s and to a lesser extent the 90s, action movies definitely became more prevalent.
Yeah, and that's true.
Versus the more drawn out, because they were actually able to have quicker shots than they used to, so you could actually have a full-blown action scene and have it be coherent.
That's true too. I think that my thought process in comparison was more so drawing from the fact that since the original was a British-French film, it's not an American movie. It's easier to see those differences.
Yeah, there is definitely a big difference between American and European cinema.
Yeah, but I also wonder if part of it has to do with uh, Bruce Willis being cast in the lead role, because from my understanding he was tapped for the part fairly early on in the development, so I'm wondering if his involvement sort of altered the way they were creating the movie, because I mean Bruce Willis is like an action star. That's what he
Right,
did.
of course.
So I'm wondering if that, not Bruce Willis's fault, but if his involvement sort of influenced the way that the movie was being developed. I don't know.
That is an interesting question to have about it. I want to. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look up when the screenplay itself was written. If it was like kind of before Bruce Willis was completely on board, then that kind of defines it.
Yeah, it's like a
But who
chicken and
knows?
the egg.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's just because as a result, just like back on the idea of like different shots and stuff. There's just so many cool moments of in '73 where there's when he's in the Turkish bath and he's walking into the back room to get changed, and it's just all these like burgundy doors on this white background, and it's like steam in the air. It's like that's straight out of a horror movie. Like you said, it's a straight out of a horror movie shot there. It's so striking, and there's just so many little moments, and then you just kind of get the '97 version, and there's nothing terribly memorable about it. It's like a lot of it's just so by the book with that style of action flick.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like it's
fairly easy to see what's coming when you're watching it too. You know what's gonna happen.
right. It's like you're trying to put an elegant, like kind of an elegant interior on like a Lamborghini. It's a Lamborghini. It's gonna come off. It's ridiculous. It doesn't matter how sophisticated the interior seating is.
Yeah.
So it's like
Oh well.
and it is enjoyable in the base level. It's hard to call it bad. It's just kind of dumb.
Yeah, but every now and then, you like watching something that's mindless.
Oh yeah. And then it's not ever like I'm definitely gonna watch the Jackal sooner than I'm gonna rewatch the Day of the Jackal, if only because it's just easier to watch.
It's more digestible.
Right. It's just something I can just watch. I don't have to think about it that hard, and it's at least action packed enough to kind of keep me awake. That's really all that it's looking to do. But at the same time, that's fine.
Yeah, there are a certain breed of film that I have that thought process with, where
Oh yeah, like even these last two movies, you've expressed that. Like even if the movie isn't as quality, if they're more fun to watch, you've been a bigger fan of them.
yeah, but also more so, there are plenty of movies that I've seen that I love, that I really enjoy, and I will never watch them again.
Oh
And
yeah, I've
that
got a
may
bunch
just
of
be
those.
Yeah, that may just be situational. It may have been the time that I was watching them, and maybe I can reflect back and be like, well, I don't want to ruin my memory of it. Who knows? But I think The Day of the Jackal is definitely one of those where I've seen it. I don't think I'm going to watch it again because I don't need to, and I love it. That's my same feeling with Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner, 2049.
I'd probably watch
I
2049 again.
Yeah, I would watch that again. Blade Runner, I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. I'm probably never going to watch it again. Part of that is because of the length, the format, the plenty of different cuts. But it falls into that category too,
Yeah, a little bit.
regardless of the reason.
That's me with like the movie Birdman.
Oh, is that the Michael Keaton?
Yeah, that's the Michael Keaton one.
I know
It's
what
like-
it's about, but I still have not seen that.
It's good. I definitely recommend it for like just a nice, sit down evening kind of thing. But it is not, like I said, it's not a one I'd probably watch again because it pretty much said all it needed to be said the first time around, and there's no particular moments where you'd be like, yeah, I want to see that again.
Yeah.
It's very much a drama.
That's good.
But yeah, I highly recommend it. I honestly think when I first finished watching it, I considered it to be one of the greatest films I've ever seen ever. It's so incredibly well done.
All right.
Oh.
Thanks for tuning into Birdman, Gas.
Yeah, just another little tangent. But yeah, that does really sum up the just the overall feeling, just the overall feeling of watching each of these movies. One's great to watch, the other one's great to watch again.
Yeah, that is such a mindless, I don't know, a lot of Bruce Willis movies
Oh
specifically are like that. Like Hudson Hawk is terrible.
yeah.
but I'd watch that again.
Yeah. And Die Hard is one of the rare moments of it being an incredible movie and just being fun to watch again.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know what that says about us, though.
Yeah, true.
But
I think Die Hard's also just has the benefit of having been an early action flick, so it set a lot of tropes.
well, yeah, Die Hard specifically is good.
Yeah.
Got Carl Winslow,
Yeah.
but
Alan Rickman.
you know, if we're talking about these actors, how do you think the casts compare? Now, obviously, I'm not. When I say that, I'm not referring to the names that the 1997 one brought in, because I mean, part of that's biased by it being an American movie in our American culture, so we recognize more faces. It's in that time period where the box office draw is probably still at its peak. But how do you think that the cast's performances sort of held up compared to one another?
I think. I mean, I'm obviously more compelled by the acting of the 73 one, but I think it's just general, just acting skills. I really liked. I loved Sidney Poitier. He's just a delight in anything he's in. I think he's probably the best actor of the bunch in the 97 version.
Yeah.
I think
he's got clout and esteem at that point too. Like this is
right, exactly.
This was his last film performance. He had been doing stuff for quite a while. Some pretty transformative roles too. By the way, one of those I actually have planned for a future episode.
Oh, cool.
But that being said, you know, he has a lot of that background too to warrant his chops, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's he's probably my favorite one that I had on there. Diane Venora as Kozlova was also pretty good. I wish she was in it for the whole film, that she didn't just die for like dramatic effect, but like I expected that to happen.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting her to die in that scene though. I was expecting it to be a little later.
Yeah, that one they did kind of pull out of nowhere.
Yeah, they killed her off with the other two.
Yeah, like I'd hoped she would
agents.
survive that at least for that kind of situation, but
Yeah.
I think, but overall, there's not much to be said about the acting of the 97 version. You know, it's as good as it needs to be.
Yeah.
But then with The Day of the Jackal, I think I liked Edward Fox a lot as the Jackal, but I actually think LaBelle, was kind of the, sleeper hit for this one.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really expect that much. When you first introduced to him, he seems kind of, almost bumbling-ish seeming. Like, he kind of seems like, a kind of Watson, John Watson type character. He's not going to be...
He looks a bit like Watson, too.
Yeah, the mustache and everything. It's like, you kind of think he's not going to be terribly effective, but then as it goes throughout, it actually pulls out he's incredibly smart, he's incredibly dedicated to the whole job, and like just the moment where he's like, which obviously both movies have this scene, but the moment where he's like, I tapped everybody in this room's phones to determine the leak, and I listened to all of them for days, and I thought that was a really cool moment. It was like, oh shit, yeah, he is completely dedicated to this. He doesn't give a shit what people think. He's just doing this because it needs to be done.
It's his job, and he knows that his job is on the line. That's why they picked him for it. He's like, right. Well, if I lose, what do they lose? Nothing.
It's like I can either breach their privacy or let the president die. It's like that kind of situation.
Yeah.
So I liked that a lot. I definitely think that LaBelle's character, which I'm trying to find him on the IMDb. It doesn't specifically mention him. But yeah, LaBelle, I think, was the sleeper hit of the whole thing.
Oh, you mean the actor?
The actor, yeah.
Michael Lonsdale?
Michelle, no.
Michelle?
I don't know.
I don't know French.
Who knows?
But, yeah, no, I agree. I don't have his credentials up or on me, but the whoever the man was in The Day of the Jackal that played the gunsmith. Oh, yeah. He was a delight. I wish he was in my family. I wish I was related to him. He seemed like such a nice...
Yeah, he seemed...
nice old not elderly, but a nice older man with, he's got some secrets because the way he's running that business. But he seems like like a nice uncle.
And I should say his name is Cyril Cusack.
All right,
He
props
was
to him.
in. Oh, he was in a rendition of 1984 with, I guess, John Hurt.
What? Oh, like an adaptation of the book?
Yeah,
19. Oh, okay.
There's the book 1984 in. Yeah, it's the John Hurt version of 1984.
Okay.
Apparently, he was in it.
Well, well.
But yeah, I did like him a lot. He was very different from Jack Black's character in like every way.
Yeah.
Like Jack Black's character ended up taking the role of both the gunsmith and the kind of document forger,
The
at least with
sleazy
attitude.
forger.
And versus like because in the 97 version, he kind of casually gets his documents from like some lady that he apparently knows, but then the gunsmith ends up taking the role, the attitude and the attitude of the document forger, and then the role of the gunsmith, and the
Right.
original.
He also has like the molds and the specs and everything for the gun that was made,
Right, exactly.
which Bruce Willis obviously doesn't want getting out.
Right. So, I definitely he was another good part of that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was just a lot of really good just individual performances throughout this the 73 version.
It was like realistic acting,
Right.
which even in films from that time you don't see a whole lot of. It didn't really feel like anyone was upselling their performance or doing more than they should have or less than they should have. They were all in their roles, and I think it helped that
Yeah.
we didn't necessarily recognize any of them, since it's not, it's technically a foreign film, so that helped me get into who they were playing rather than who they are.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it really did lend itself to the entire piece as a whole, like their style of acting in that one. Even in like it's also a nice breath of fresh air with outside of American acting, like in the original Ocean's 11, where everyone's just quipping all the time and everyone sounds exactly the goddamn same.
They're not just selling the movie, they're selling themselves too.
Right, they're selling the situation. They're not selling,
Yeah.
they're not selling. They're not trying to sell tickets, basically.
That's for the studio to be in charge of.
Which apparently they had kind of fallen flat on, because like the director himself in The Day of the Jackal said he wanted Edward Fox because he was very underknown and kind of nondescript for the role of the Jackal. He didn't want like a big name for it. But then he also stated later on, I realize now that probably hurt initial sales
Yeah.
because it ended up being a box office failure.
Oops. It's cited as one of the greatest French films of all time, right? Or British
Oh,
films.
yeah.
Or one
Something
of
like that.
those.
It's oh yeah, it's definitely like it was critically acclaimed, but like nothing else. That's for sure.
Yeah, I know it influenced a lot of people too, but
True.
regardless, I'm a fan. It got me.
Oh yeah, it's another one of those weeks of we know damn well going straight into this which one our favorites are.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
don't-
I almost think it would have been better to watch the 97 version first and then watch the original. That may have changed opinions to be a bit more even, but just following up such a smart film like Day of the Jackal with the Jackal, it can't compare professionally. I'd still watch the Jackal sooner than
Yeah.
the Day of the Jackal again, mostly because it's just baseline entertaining. But it still just kind of loses a lot of the mystique and like just skill that the original had.
I can see myself being more fair, but I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have personally enjoyed it on any other level. I think I would have felt the same because I'm already not a big action movie person,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, with this type of movie, it is an action movie. The
Oh,
Jackal is
yeah.
an action film, but
It definitely is, yeah.
it still has a lot more planning and talking than your average action movie. So I do feel like some of the genetics of the the original source material were able to bleed their way into the film.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, and there were certain scenes that were explicitly remade, like the scene where they tapped everyone's phones and everything. And I see you can kind of see how it wants to be that smart film, but it ended up kind of caving to a lot of probably modern, at the time modern tropes to get more tickets.
yeah, it's sort of following that formula that makes a film successful, and that may have I don't know. Do you have box office numbers on this thing? It may have ended up hurting it, but I don't know how it performed.
Yeah, I can
I'm
check
sure it
on
out.
the
I'm
Jackal.
sure. Yeah, I'm sure it outperformed the Day of the Jackal. I'm like positive of that, but I still don't know how good it actually did on its own.
I'm trying to see if there's like I'm on the IMDb of it. I'm just trying to find the
Yeah, I got
specific
you.
numbers for it. I'll actually just Google it specifically.
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, how even even considering where these films fall, like the one is obviously not that well known or watched in America because it's not an American piece.
Right.
But I still think that that one is going to be more well known and definitely carries over more than the Jackal does.
Yeah. And I should
Like,
say the Jackal earned 159.3 million USD at the box office versus the Day of the Jackal, which earned 16.06 million.
oh my, no.
Yeah, which obviously based on the time and inflation difference, it's gonna be a bit more even, but it is
It's still
definitely
yeah, even for the time, that's about to roll over into the 80s. That's still not good.
yeah, seriously.
Oh
Although I
no.
should say also the Jackal also has a 36 on Metacritic and a 21 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying is that it can't like it doesn't last.
Yeah.
Not to say that people okay. I'm not saying that people that create those like AFI lists or whatever, the definitive people with movie taste or anything, but I don't think the Jackal is ending up on anyone's list of top anything.
Yeah, no, it's a
I don't
pretty
even
generic action flick.
I don't even think it'd be on like the top 10 best Bruce Willis roles, and I can't name 10 Bruce Willis films off the top of my head.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I gotta agree on that one.
that's just where it lies. I mean, from what we've discussed, I know we've said this before, it could probably be a drinking game at this point, but I think it's obvious what our favorite picks are here. Or
Yeah,
pick is.
yeah, it's kind of obvious. The 73 Jackal, it's Day of the Jackal, it's phenomenal to watch. Not something you watch just like on a casual Saturday afternoon. Like definitely you take some time out to watch it specifically. And if you want to go like kind of a mindless flick, well, you know what? I don't even know if I'd recommend the Jackal as a mindless flick. Like there are better movies for it, which I can get into because
Definitely.
as always, I have my replacement
Yeah.
recommendations.
Well, that being said, if you were flipping through channels on the TV, obviously assuming if you had cable, I know a lot of us,
Don't
especially me,
anymore.
do not. But if you were just flipping through channels and you saw the Day of the Jackal, would you stop and watch it?
Me personally, probably, honestly, because if only because I've seen it now and I like some of the scenes.
Right. I might
Like,
watch it for a bit because I have seen it, but yeah, I definitely I don't think I'd watch the whole thing again, even if I was flipping around. Whereas the Jackal, especially if I didn't see anything else on, I would definitely just put that in and
oh
just have
yeah,
it in the background while I'm doing dishes or something. I guess at that point I'm not watching it, but I'd still prefer to have that on, I guess.
hmm yeah, I gotta agree on that one. That's a pretty good way of putting it.
I,
But on that note, I should say there are a few ones that I would very much recommend over the Jackal. There's Clear and Present Danger, Red October, A Hunt for Red October.
yeah.
If you want a more modern one, there's the first Jack Reacher movie. Really, really well done action flick. That's also really smart.
Right.
It's hard to call a thriller because it's not doesn't work very hard on tension building, but it is actually a very smart action flick where it actually kind of goes into the details of like a murder case or ballistics testing and that sort of stuff with scenes of violence.
All
So
right.
I do think that one I'd probably honestly recommend highest of all. Like there are a bunch of that time era, late like early '90s, late '80s type movies, like a lot of the Tom Clancy movies, but like or Patriot Games. Patriot Games is probably the most similar to the Jackal, honestly.
Yeah. I'll
But
have to take some of those. I'll have to take some of those recommendations to heart. I think The Hunt for Red October is the only one of those that I've seen.
mm,
So
yeah,
yeah.
I definitely recommend at least Jack Reacher. It's definitely the most modern one. I recommend it, but still.
So before we officially wrap this up,
Hmm.
what is your favorite scene of the Jackal? Your least favorite one. What is your favorite part? I already said mine.
Hmm. I'm not sure. Like there was one scene. I'm trying to remember. Honestly, I kind of like the opening scene a lot. Like it's just kind of just like this. Like it's kind of playing up. The fact that the Cold War has ended and now it's a different life going on in Russia with law enforcement and that sort of thing. And I kind of like this. I was hoping that they would be more involved with the Russian mob setup than it ended up being. Like, because it seemed like in Day of the Jackal they were very connected still with the OAS, but with the Jackal it kind of I was hoping kind of the way they started bringing up the Russian mob and how involved they were to get revenge, that they were going to be a bigger part of it. And so I like that those first two scenes a lot for that very reason.
Yeah. To be honest, I forgot that the FBI was integrated with the MVD at that point because it kind of bled together and they didn't really bring it up. And I had completely forgotten that
There's a brief
those
mention in
Russian
the
yeah.
oh, there's like a brief background mention in the very opening with the opening credits that there's a new task force between Russia and the United States.
Yeah, I knew about that, but it becomes so integrated like throughout the movie, they're just sort of there.
Yeah,
I personally forgot that they were Russian. They weren't like American, just Americans with Russian accents. I forgot that they were involved with that specific task force until it's revealed that one of them is the mole,
right.
like
Which
giving
never gets brought up
information.
again.
Yeah, so
Yeah, like I that was a bit disappointing how they just kind of glossed over that. But for that, like, it was for that reason in the opening that I kind of liked it. Like that it was going for that cool modernization of the situation, which not necessarily the most dramatic and politically accurate thing I would have assumed the modernization would have been, but still works.
yeah, still it gets its point across.
Well, and then yeah, you've already mentioned your favorite scene, obviously. So
Yeah, except the metal music. I would have. I don't know. I would have
yeah,
played something different.
yeah, a little bit.
That felt like too. Oh, it's an action movie. There's like heavy metal rock or whatever blaring out of these speakers. Bleh. No thanks.
Yeah,
Not to say I don't like that music, but just in that didn't work for me.
yeah, it didn't really gel.
Nope. Except I guess that it's loud, so it draws attention to it.
True, but that can be said of a lot of music of the '90s. So
Yeah.
surprising they went with metal and not like grunge.
That would have brought in the grunge crowd. That was really big at the time.
Yeah, seriously.
They dropped the ball on that one.
Look at us. We're solving the problems of the '90s. But about 2 decades too late.
If I could go back in time and redirect any movie, it would be The Jackal.
I would do Nation's Pride.
Oh, so we're just picking what? Okay, I do. Ernest Saves Christmas. Honestly, it could have been better.
Yeah. I should say that I wouldn't pick Nation's Pride, by the way. That is a Nazi propaganda film, and it is horrible. I
Made
just
in the '90s, so it's even
what a
worse.
twist! What a
Uh,
complete and utter twist.
all right, do you have any follow-ups before we
Uh,
end this?
No, I think I've said all I need to. I've made my edgy joke of the evening. So
Oh, okay. We've met our quota. So,
yay! I will hear from the angry people tomorrow.
all right. That being said, let's sort of go through the rounds?
Oh yeah, give us our little give us the social avenues for which to complain about my edginess.
At It Remade for updates on when the show comes out, I suppose. TheyRemadeIt.com is just a front for our money laundering scheme. They remade it. I just said that one.
We're not great at laundering.
They were at. What am I talking? They remade it at gmail.com. I'm sort of getting confused. If you want to send any hate mail or just hate mail, those are the only ones I'll read. And
yeah,
anywhere you listen to it, we're on Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on a lot of weird things. So
we're all over the daggone place.
But we're hosted at Anchor, so that's probably the easiest place to just go and find us is the hosting site that is Anchor, and that's it.
Yeah. As always, thank you for listening. As always, and please do recommend us to whoever you can. We very much appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate it too. I'll recommend it right back to you, and then you'll be like, "Well, why did you do this?" That's pointless.
Just a cyclical movement.
Full circle.
Anyway, full circle. Anyway, I'm as always your host Stuart,
and I'm Jacob.
And thank you for listening. Have a good evening.
There is one thing. How did you know whose telephone to tap?
I didn't, so I tapped all of them.